Welcome to Ayurveda and Spirituality with your host, Alakananda Ma, a renowned Ayurvedic expert and a graduate of a top London medical school. She is the principal of Alundi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship-style school in Boulder, Colorado. She is a spiritual mother, teacher, flower essence maker, and storyteller. Join us as we uncover the timeless principles of Ayurveda, discover practical tips for enhancing vitality, and explore
Indra,
the deeper dimensions of spirituality that
the
intertwine
king
with
of
the ancient
heaven,
science of life.
woke up
Today
with
on
the
podcast,
worst
we are
headache
sharing a
of his
recording
life.
from the archives.
Had he drunk too much of the soma, the drink of the gods? Was this a really, really bad hangover? Oh, what's this bump on my head? Oh, now I remember. A battle. The demons. The demons came all the way into my palace and they won. Opening his eyes, Indra looked around and saw that all the pillars of the heavenly palace were battered and broken. The Gandharvas, the celestial musicians like Seva and Sadananda, couldn't play anymore because their instruments were broken and their hands were all bandaged and banged up. And all the heavenly nymphs were sitting huddled in a corner. Just then, a single tear rolled down the cheek of the youngest heavenly nymph, and she gave a tiny sniff. "That does it," said Indra. "That does it. Hysterical women, that's all I need. I'm out of here." And jumping on his great elephant, Airavata, he flew, and he flew, and he flew to the heaven of Brahma. And storming in without any ceremony, because Brahma was only one rank up from him, he began, "Look what you've done, you silly fool." "Well, this is no way to address me. This is really rude. What's going on now? What have I done?" "There's this demon," said Indra, "this horrible buffalo demon. He's destroying the earth. He's covering everything with black tar. He's chopping down the forests. He's digging up this yellow metal they like out of the earth. And Varuna, the god of the oceans, is very angry because he's killing the whales and he's killing the dolphins." Well, this is starting to sound kind of serious, but what am I supposed to do about it? "Well, it's all your fault because you created him." Now, my dear Indra, please understand, I'm the creator. That's my job description. I create gods, like yourself. I create those, what do you call those things down there? Oh, humans. I create them too, and animals and all that stuff down there. And I create demons too. And it's the function of demons to make mischief. Nothing I can do about it. I've just got to follow my job. We better appeal to a higher authority. Here, hop in. So they both climb into Brahma's goose chariot, and they fly, and they fly to the top of Mount Kailash, where Shiva is seated in meditation. Both the gods stand there shivering for a very long time, chanting Om Namah Shivaya, until at last Shiva opens his eyes and says, "Yes." And they say, "Oh Lord Shiva, we are being troubled by a horrible buffalo demon, and none of us has been able to defeat him. None of us among the gods can defeat this demon." "Oh," says Shiva, and he snaps his finger and he calls for the Book of Boons, and some of his ghouls and goblins rush up with the Book of Boons and they start flipping through it. Boons, boons. "Ah yes, buffalo demon, boon is, no man can kill him." "Oh yes," said Shiva, "I remember. Very nice demon, did some nice fire ceremonies, nice pujas, stood in freezing cold rivers. That's the boon, no man can kill him. And I'm a man, you're a man, and you're a man. Nothing we can do about it. We'd better appeal to the higher authorities. Here, hop on." So they all climbed onto Shiva's great Mount Nandi, the bull, and they flew, and they flew, and they flew to the heaven of Vishnu, where Vishnu is reclining on the coils of the cosmic serpent with goddess Lakshmi, massaging his feet. And they tell the whole sad tale to Vishnu, And he thinks for a moment, and he says, well, the solution seems to be very simple. We pool all our powers together and we create a woman. A what? Said Indra. A woman, says Vishnu. But what good would that do? Says Indra. My dear Indra, didn't you just tell me just now yourself that no man can kill this demon? And doesn't it seem entirely logical then that a woman could? Poor Indra. Not only has he been defeated by demons, but he now has to be saved by a woman. So all the gods put all their Shakti together, and they pray and they pray and they pray to the supreme feminine power. Om Parar Shaktyai Namaha, Om Parar Shaktyai Namaha, until at last they hear a wonderful sound. Ring! 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 And out of that sound comes a light, and out of that light there manifests the most beautiful woman you have ever seen. Her long hair falls below her waist. Her eyes are like two lovely fishes swimming in opposite directions. Her teeth are like a row of pearls. Her cheeks are like lotus blossoms. Her sari is green as the springtime grass. And she rides on a tiger. And this is Durga. And it is by Durga that the buffalo demon is defeated and the world is saved. And the whole story you have to come on Little Girls Festival time at the ashram. We do the whole story, dramatic version. I do the Kali dancing, killing the demons and everything. But this much will suffice for now. This is that time. This is that time when the male gods are impotent. This is that time when only the mother can deliver us. This is the time in which we live, when the supreme feminine power is awakening. More than 100 years ago, on the banks of I'm going to start crying, on the banks of the great river Ganges, in a place that the British called Calcutta, but it is called Calicut, at a temple called Dakshineshwar, a madman, a female impersonator, a lover of young boys named Sri Ramakrishna wakened the mother as a deliverance for this time. And in wakening the mother, he also called forth the new mission of women. There is a very special ashram in Maharashtra, and when I first met Sadanand, he would tell me many times about this very special ashram, and he would say, you have to go there, you would love it. And sure enough, he took me there. It's an ashram called Kanyakumaristan, the land of the little maid child goddess. And in that place, there dwell many women who have been devoted to God since the age of 9. And their guru was a wonderful teacher named Upasni Maharaj, who used to wear nothing but a sack and made this beautiful ashram in a former graveyard, in a polluted and lonely place. He made this ashram and he gathered these girls around him, because his teaching was the weak one alone can destroy the strong. And this is actually the teaching about Kanyakumari, the goddess as the little maid child. It's stories within stories. Long, long ago, eons ago, there was an avatar named Parashuram, who had come to destroy the unjust kings. And when he had destroyed all the unjust kings, he gave the kingdom to the most just king, but that just king feared him too, and so he banished him from the realm, which was the whole world. So Parashuram had nowhere to go, and so he made his own land by shooting 3 arrows into the ocean. And then the ocean rose up and said, "Don't harass me, I will do whatever you like." And he said, "Build me a land." So the ocean and the earth heaved, and they threw up a beautiful volcanic land, and it stretches from Cape Comorin at the southern tip of India all the way to Goa. And that was the land that was given to Parashuram. And he dwells there still, because Parashuram, like Elijah or Babaji Maha Avatar, he's an immortal being who has never left the earth. But how to make his new land stable and secure? He knew only one way: to hold back all the forces that could destroy his land. He had to call upon the most powerful energy in the entire world. Are there any moms here? Are there any moms got daughters? You're a little boy, I just saw him. The most powerful energy in the entire world, as the moms of daughters might have noticed, is a little girl. So the goddess, in the form of a little girl under the age of 9, was enshrined at Kanyakumari or Cape Comorin on the southern tip of India, and there it is she who guards the land, because the teaching is the weak one alone can destroy the strong. Only the purity of the little girl can destroy the powerful forces of darkness. So these sisters, or Kanyas, who dwell in this Kanyakumaristan in Maharashtra, are devoted to maintaining that energy of the goddess as a little maid child. I was very fascinated when I met them, because until meeting them, I had fully embraced male spirituality, because I didn't know about anything else. So I was going around in my yellow sari with no ornaments. Even the poorest beggar has bracelets. The poorest beggars are trying to take the bracelets off their wrists and give them to me, but I am above wearing bracelets because I am spiritual, and spiritual women don't wear ornaments and dress up. And I was trying to go with Sadanand and meditate in caves. And there were very good things that I did with Sadanand, like meditating in caves. However, I, at that time, believed that the male path of conquering the ego through penance was the path. And I would feel a little bad because I wasn't Sadanand, and I wasn't as big as him, I wasn't as strong as him, I couldn't meditate for as long, I wasn't as good at yoga, and if he wasn't taking care of me, I wouldn't even have been able to go and meditate in caves. So obviously I was kind of at a bit of a disadvantage because I was only a woman. You get moon time. I mean, I don't get that anymore, but you get moon time every month, and then you can't do your meditation practices, so that's like 4 days that you lose out of every month, so how are you going to keep up? I was trying to keep up despite the disadvantage of being a woman, which clearly was a hindrance on this path that I was trying to follow, and that every other spiritual woman that I'd ever met in the whole world was in one way or another trying to follow the same path as the men, because that's the spiritual path, right? Wrong. As Sadanand knew about this, and that's why he had brought me to this ashram, so that I would come to learn that just as there's a path for women, that just as there's a path for men, there's a path for women too. And just as men are better at their path than women are, guess what? Women are better at their path than men. Big surprise. So I come to this ashram and I'm totally surprised because all these Hindu nuns are all wearing these beautiful colored saris. They all have beautiful bracelets on. They all wear a red dot. They are stunningly beautiful. We later, and it's not their looks. A lot of them were, they didn't get their orthodontic work. They might be scrawny or buck teeth. It's not about them looking like they would ever be on the cover of Organic Style or whatever magazine you read, because they wouldn't. But we actually ended up being in Washington, D.C. with these women in their saris. And every single person who saw them was completely stunned by their beauty, which I say was not about whether they got their orthodontic work or the fact that most of them were over 50. It was their emanation of the beauty of the feminine just took every single person's breath away. And they dance in a ring. They do Krishna dances. And the place is very beautiful, and they eat really nice food. They don't just eat, fasting food. They cook delicious meals. Best food I ever had in India was at their ashram. This was very interesting. What was this telling me? So their guru, Upasani Maharaj, who founded this ashram, said that there was one reason why he was such a great Sadguru in this life. He was really, one has to say, one of the most outstanding gurus ever. He said it's very simple. Where did I get my power? In my last birth. I was a housewife. It was through my devotion and my dedication and my path as a housewife that I attained all the spiritual power that you see me have today. I got it through my life as a woman. This was very radical for a guru to say back in 1910, 1914, like, I got where I got because I was born as a woman, which for thousands of years had been looked upon as a lower and more disadvantaged birth. Now, what does Upasani Maharaj say next? At that time in India, a woman was not allowed to chant Om because she was considered as innately less spiritual. That basically all women were treated in a way like, they were allowed to be touched, but otherwise they were treated like untouchables in that they couldn't learn the Vedas, they couldn't do pujas, they couldn't do fire ceremonies, and they certainly couldn't chant the Vedas. After all, women have smaller brains, so they're too stupid to do that anyway, right? So Upasani Maharaj came along and he stood everything on its head. And he said, of course, it is possible for men to learn the Vedas. And it is possible for men to do pujas and ceremonies. And men may do so if there is no qualified woman available. Wow. That's just like, turn everything flip-flop. He said, why? Women are much more qualified to do this. Why? Because there are 3 gunas. Have you heard about the 3 gunas? Has everybody heard about it? Anybody not know about the 3 gunas? Okay, we'll explain it then. There are 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They're the 3 modes of nature. Prakriti, or Mother Nature, is a weaver, and she has threads of 3 colors. The white thread is the thread of purity and clarity. The red thread is the thread of passion, and the black thread is the thread of inertia. The white thread, purity, we call sattva. The red thread, the thread of passion, is rajas. And the black thread, the thread of inertia, is tamas. So sattva, rajas, tamas. Her entire weaving of the universe is woven of these threads of these 3 colors in varying arrays. So Upasani Maharaj explains, the nature of men is inherently of rajas. Men are imbued with the mode of passion. And the nature of woman is inherently of sattva. So there's a very simple reason that explains why women would in fact be better qualified to conduct rituals and ceremonies. And the only reason why they're not able to do it is because nobody taught them. Eventually, Upasani Maharaj's great disciple, a woman who became God-realized at the age of 9, Godavari Mataji, took over his ashram. Now, just as Upasani Maharaj has attained his power to be a great male yogi Sadguru who could fast for years on end through being a housewife in his previous life, Godavari Mataji attained her power to be a fully sattvic, fully enlightened, born enlightened woman, because in her previous birth she was a wild, naked, ganja-smoking male saint, known as Gajanan Maharaj. So it's very interesting, the interplay. And just in case anyone thinks maybe a male birth would be worse, well, both births are really good. So Godavari Mataji took over the whole ashram and trained all the women in the Vedas, and eventually she had the gall to take her girls to Varanasi, to the heart of India's Brahmanhood, to the center of India's mandala, and sit by the shores of the Ganges and have these women do a fire ceremony. Consternation was created in Kashi, in Varanasi, in the heart of India, among the Brahmin orthodoxy. Everything is being violated by these women. So all the pundits get together in a great convocation to discuss whether these women should be allowed to do what they're doing on a daily basis. And after deep study, they come to the conclusion that the reason that women were forbidden to chant the Vedas and do the ceremonies was because they were incapable of doing so. And that since these women have clearly proved themselves capable, therefore, QED, they are permitted to do so. So Mataji took on the orthodoxy in its own place, and through the logic of the orthodoxy itself, they had to admit to the fact that these women could chant impeccable Sanskrit and perform the ceremonies very impeccably. So the path that Upasani Maharaj set out for these women and for other women devoted to him was different then from the path of men. Because Upasani Maharaj said, since the male is imbued with rajas, as a man in a male birth, and remember, not we should get identified because all of us has had male births, and all of the two beautiful men here have definitely had some amazing female births as well. When you're in a male body, what you have to deal with this rajas is the male ego. I don't know, it's something that I noticed during my life is that testosterone makes you feel you're right and estrogen makes you feel that you're wrong. Yeah, I just noticed it. It kind of fits together because then the woman always feels that she's wrong and she's insecure. She's very insecure, so she feels that she needs someone to make her feel secure. So that has a tendency to get men and women to get together. So, since the man has to deal with the male ego, he has to embark on a path that will help him to conquer the male ego. That means he has to do a lot of tapasya. He has to do a lot of penance because he has to work to overcome this ego. Now, Upasani Maharaj says, well, you can do one of three things. You can really do intense penance as a man. Or you can take the help of the feminine. And this would mainly apply to a man who is heterosexual, but then you would take the help of the feminine because you would marry a woman and you would provide her every opportunity to pursue the spiritual path. So you go to work, you'll become a software engineer or whatever, so you make a good living. So she has a place to do her spiritual practice, and she has a house cleaner or some help so that she actually has the time to do her practice. And then you're using your rajas to go out and conquer the world in her service, and you'll be elevated by her. Or the third way, which is the way that we do it, you both work together, and you both pursue your path. And then it's not the hard work for the woman to elevate the man. Like it is if your partner is got to go out in the world and be really rajasic and doesn't feel like working to conquer his male ego himself. So that's three kind of models that Upasani Maharaj put forth. So the woman is here as able to elevate people. We have to understand that Upasani Maharaj gave his teachings like around 1914. So things for women have still changed and evolved a lot since then. But he laid a foundation by being the person really on the planet that started to spiritually enfranchise women who at that point in any religion you could think of were lesser. I remember one day in the Catholic Church being at Mass and hearing John Paul our Pope, Charles our Archbishop, James our Bishop, and all clergy, and feeling like there were like 50 men right between me and Jesus, and I couldn't get through them all because I was only a woman and there's like all this whole lineup of men. Whatever religion you go into, all will be equally culpable because we've all been living in the same paradigm, as I've said many times in these other talks, that the feminine was considered actually not worthy of the spiritual path. Why? Because if we try to take the male spiritual path of conquest, trying to conquer our ego, I mean, what are we trying to conquer? You wake up every morning feeling like you need some man to tell you you're okay. Trying to conquer your ego is not going to work. It's not the right path for you. So, according to Upasani Maharaj, whereas men need to take this path of doing penance, working with that male ego, and then eventually coming to the point of surrender. And then the man will be just like a woman. That's what Upasani Maharaj says. That then only a man, he says, can ultimately attain the state of the kanya by completely breaking through his male ego and becoming totally surrendered. In the meantime, as women, we're naturally inclined to devotion and surrender. I know these are bad words in America. I know that all the teachers like Krishnadas and so on say that the three things you can't say in America are faith, devotion, and surrender because they're really bad words. That shows how far we've got into a male paradigm. These qualities are inherent in us as women. If we don't have faith, devotion, and surrender to the energy of the true Guru, what do? We turn around and have faith, devotion, and surrender to some guy where we shouldn't put that. Because they actually can't save us. That's not their job. And we do it again and again and again. We misplace our natural tendency to have faith, devotion, and surrender by expecting someone out there to be the white knight that they aren't. Because we're misplacing our innate tendency to have surrender and to have devotion and to want to serve. So if instead we start to work with these tendencies consciously, yes, I'm a woman, that means I do naturally put others ahead of myself. Right? How could you be a mother if you don't do that? You won't be able to be a mother without that. You can't say, shut up, I need to sleep, when baby cries in the night. We're naturally going to put others ahead of ourselves. We're going to naturally feel inclined to surrender and be devotional. So we can follow a path that is easy. Putney Maharaj said a woman doesn't have to try to be spiritual. She just has to be herself. The problem is, that sounds very easy. Like, as a woman, I'm sattvic and I'm innately spiritual, and all I have to do is ground into my own being, and I'm spiritual. Easier said than done, because of our situation in the world in which we live and move. In one half of the world, the feminine is still down. Like you go to Saudi Arabia, you have to get a permission slip from your husband to leave your house. Then a chauffeur has to drive you, which is ridiculous because the chauffeur is a man, so now you're unchaperoned with a man, which doesn't make sense because you're not supposed to do that, and you're covered from pretty much head to foot, and you can't vote because you are so sattvic that you should be completely protected from the world's contamination and allowed to simply represent the purity of the inner light, and the rajas of the male will protect you if it's enlightened, or dominate you if it's unenlightened. This is still today the situation of many, many women in the world. Other side of the coin, we come to somewhere like Denver. Look around you. I mean, I just was so horrified by one, I think it was a Viacom poster that I saw. So it was like a huge poster in downtown Denver. This woman's like skirts are like around here, and then they're like see-through. It's like massive, huge poster. What are we doing? Like women in bathing suits reclining to sell cars and so on. What are we doing with the feminine? Actually, the other side of the same coin as Saudi Arabia. Complete objectification and exploitation of the feminine. I remember being told all the time when I was a little girl, wash your face is your fortune. Did you ever get told that? It's like a saying in England. Wash your face with milk, your face is your fortune, you've got to take care of it. Can you see what I'm saying? It's just the other side of the coin of Saudi Arabia. If we have to, we can't go through the streets of Denver. We can't go into a grocery store. We can't go anywhere without seeing the skimpily clad, airbrushed supermodel who you're supposed to be, or if you're not, there's something wrong with you. After traveling so much of the world, well, okay, backtrack a little bit. When I was in India, I loved being in India, but I had to always keep my eyes cast down and stand behind Sadananda and shut up, basically. Unless I was with women. And so I felt, I love India, but it's going to be really nice to get back to a country where women are free. So I came to America, and I arrived in Denver, Colorado. And I look around me and I think, oh my God, women are not free here either. It's just a different kind of not free. The conclusion I came to was, in America, I'm free to be a person, but in India, I was free to be a woman. I don't know if any of you understand what I'm saying. In India, as a woman, I could move in woman's space. If I needed to buy a train ticket, I didn't have to stand in a line where there were any men. And the women's line was always shorter. You got your ticket faster, but you were jolly sure that nobody pinched your butt while you were buying your ticket, because you didn't have to line up with the men. You didn't have to, there's always that fear if I ride the Greyhound bus without Sadananda that like a man will come and sit next to me. It's just not, I don't know them, it's kind of, after India, not what I really like. But in India, you can travel around freely because there's women's seats on the buses, women's compartments in the train. You move around safely in women's space. In India, I'm free to wear a sari and bracelets and emanate the feminine and join with other women and feel that vibration of the feminine exchange between us. In America, I'm free to give someone a hug, whether they're male or female, look people in the eye, speak up. I'm free to vote, which I'm free to do in India too. In fact, in India, they have had women prime minister, but not in America, which maybe is telling us something more about how come, in fact, women could almost be less free here. Because India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, where women veil and cover, have all had women prime ministers. But a woman leader in America has not come yet. And it's still, I know they're trying to run Hillary Clinton, but we'll see. We're still very far from having women in power, with meaningful power, meaningful political power. Not talking about Condoleezza Rice's, who, very, very intelligent woman, but she's put out there as some kind of like veneer, some kind of tokenism. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, ultimately, we need to be free to be people and speak, and we also need to be free to be women, which means we need to be free to honor the feminine beauty without exploitation, without objectification, without reification. Just, you need to be free to get up in the morning and look like what you want to look like, and not try to look like whoever on the front of the magazine or feel bad because you don't. You need to be free to have your sexual potency without having to have it be some kind of negotiating tool that you need to get a job or to keep a job or whatever else. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's more potent. Your sexual potency is more potent if it's not a kind of common currency, because you're still not seen as a person, but in some way sexually objectified. So when I look around me, even though we have made so many advances in liberating women, we still have some huge steps further that we need to take. We can do all these things now, like vote, like in some countries become leaders, and here, at least on paper, in theory, potentially could become leaders, even though in practice has never happened. We can hold good jobs, though we usually get paid less. And also when we hold the good job, as women, what do? We hold the 40, 50 hours a week job at work, and then we hold the 40, 50 hours a week job that we would have held before if we didn't go to work, which is called being a housewife and a mother, which we still hold, because somebody's got to do it, and women naturally are going to take it on, liking to serve more so, usually, than the man. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not to put down the distance that we've come in the last, little more than the last century, of trying to shake off 4,000 years where the rajas of the male, in the name of protecting, dominates the feminine. Now remember, you all have to come next time when we talk about the male wound, because this talk is not actually intended to be biased in the sense that men have had their own immense suffering during this whole 4,000-year period, and we're all in it together. And none of this is about men. It's about different trends between the masculine and the feminine. It's not about men being the problem. If we start to make men the problem, we're never going to get out of this, because we all need to get out of this together. So that's why the other talk is important too, because that's the other side of it. But so in the last 100 years or so, we've made some strides as the paradigm is starting to shift. But we need to be very clear about where we're going, because if you don't know where you're going, you might go the wrong way. And I think there's every danger of us going the wrong way. I think that feminism, and not to say that feminism went the wrong way, but in a certain sense, yes. Okay, because once women are less than men, then women's values and women's skills and women's concerns are therefore less important than men's. So feeling that you have to only cook or only take care of children or only homemake or only be intuitive or only listen, or these kind of activities are obviously less good because men said so, because we do them, so they're less good. So if we want to become free, that means we want to be free to do the guy stuff. Because it's better, we know it's better, it's more important. And we want to be free to develop those skills that men have, because you get paid better for those skills, you get rewarded better for those skills. Am I making sense? I mean, it's a trend among the young women in our community back to full-time mothering. Why? Because they want to do it. Not because anyone's making them do it. The families make a lot of sacrifices. The fathers make a lot of sacrifices to let that happen. Because the young women who are starting to feel their own power feel that taking care of their children is a really great thing to do. You're nodding there. You're a mother. Yeah, it's something that's really important. But since it became so undervalued, then we didn't want to be told, that's women's stuff and it's unimportant, but it's all you're fit for. But it's not really important, but you can do that little bit. And after all, children need good mothers, so you should do it. So it's not that we... I'm not saying so everyone should only be a mother. I'm not trying to talk like the Pope or something. I'm just saying that this is really, really important work. It's important spiritual work. It's important one's own spiritual growth and the child's spiritual growth. I remember my sister. My sister was such a radical feminist. She would write these strident letters about feminism. And eventually one day she phones me up and she says to me, I've started knitting. And she said, at first I felt really guilty. I felt like I should be doing car mechanics. But you know what? Knitting is a woman's art. And I value women's art. And I really enjoy knitting a lot better than car mechanics. So this was my sister's rediscovery from the strident radical feminist who go learn car mechanics. And learning car mechanics is cool, by the way, if you have a car, because it's good to know how it works. But modern cars you can't do much with anyway, because they're computerized. All the way to what I really want to do is knit, play my flute, and raise my children. And then now her children are grown, so then she went to psychotherapy school. And she's working in a women's center. She's still a feminist. But she's a different kind of feminist than she was back in the 70s. It's been an immense growth process. I spent 5 years on the board of the Boulder Co-op Market. And for about 3 or 4 of those years, I was the only woman. And I'd say, can we not find some women candidates? And they would say there are no qualified women candidates. And I would say that's because you've defined any skill that a woman has as not useful. Right? Because as the woman on the board, I'm the one that's sitting there taking the emotional temperature, getting people to come together and agree and stop the board falling apart or imploding into 12 different male egos. those are actually, even though I don't know anything about retail or business or how to remodel the building or how to design a retail shop or any of the things that the men know about or marketing or any of it, the skills that I brought were useful. I don't think there would be a co-op without someone there with woman skills. Because all those male egos with all those male skills would just have spun off and would never have come together to make a co-op without someone holding that ground, often in silence, sometimes in tears, holding that ground of woman's skills. I had a dream the other night that the government had made it that we would never be able to see the moon. I was like, we're going to get such bad psychological damage from not being able to see the moon. They had done something with the times so that the moon would never come up. Well, I would not dare to use the word as a woman, but David Barsamian used the word testosterone-driven to describe the current administration. And so that's the sense of making it that we'll never be able to see the moon. The fact is, for 4,000 years, we haven't seen the moon in reality. And it has caused psychological damage to both men and women, both of whom are human beings and all of whom are struggling with what is going on at this time. Remember again, it's not men who are the problem. It's not about men. It's simply about we're changing paradigms. Everyone has suffered from the impact of an imbalance, that one masculine age followed another and it didn't get balanced out. Whether men or whether women, we've all been affected by it in our own ways. But the time now is coming when women need to rise up as women. Not rising up as like Margaret Thatcher or I suspect even Hillary Clinton, as pretty much worse than a man at being all the things that women don't like about men, i.e. more competitive, more hard edge, more in the head than any. A woman who is possessed by the masculine is not going to be as nice as a real man who is masculine but also has their feminine hopefully happening, or at least a potential for it. Right? So we don't need more iron-hearted women to come forth and lead the world down the same old path that we've been going down, the path to extinction. It doesn't help. What your anatomy is does not help if you're continuing to do the same thing, having the same competitive edge, the same hardness, the same coming from the head, the same not seeing the flow for the mechanics, and so on. You're still in the testosterone-driven paradigm, even if your body's making estrogen. You know what I'm saying? What we need now is for women to stand up as women. And that's a lot of deep inner work for each and every one of us. That means healing our women's wounds. Everyone has the women's wounds. I was talking to one of my patients the other day. She had so much anger about what she had been through, and I said, please understand your anger is transpersonal. If you just see your anger as woman anger, and it becomes transpersonal, it's going to be so much more workable, because then it becomes the anger of the feminine at the repression of the feminine. Instead of being my anger at all these guys, beginning with my father, who did all this bad stuff to me. which now we're getting back into that polarization, where all these men were the problem. Actually, that's not the case. It's a transpersonal dimension of anger, which it doesn't have to be negative. The anger becomes negative when we say, well, actually, I'm so angry with myself because of all the bad stuff that I let myself do or have done to me. Now, this is negativity. Because now not only I'm angry, but I'm angry with myself. Opening up the spaciousness of the anger of the feminine as something that's transpersonal, because we all bear it. Men and women alike, ultimately, all bear the anger of the repression of the feminine. We open up this anger very spaciously, not claiming it, my anger because of all this stuff that got done to me, that I'm so angry about, just opening up the spaciousness of it. We all have the anger because we all suffered. Underneath the anger is the ocean of grief. We just have to say, what's happening to the earth? We should feel the anger and we should feel the grief, and we're all co-creating this. How are we going to move out of this downward spiral that we've done to the earth? By the rising up of women, one by one and together as women. Not as pretend men, not as sexless, not as sex objects, but as real empowered women who stand in the feminine, who stand in our women's skills, our heart skills, our emotional skills, our feeling function, our intuitiveness, our desire to serve, our readiness to defer to the other and say, sure, let's do it your way. That's what oils the wheels. How are we going to have a relationship if nobody defers? The quality of a relationship depends on the ability to defer to another. The woman is skilled in deferring. When we stand as women, we're capable of deferring and saying, sure, we'll try it your way. That means being very spacious with our anger, because our anger is going to come out and be really strident and say, no, we're going to do it my way, because no one ever listened to me for 4,000 years, so we've got to do it my way. The woman's skill is actually, sure, we'll try it that way, and we'll see what happens. And you know what? If it doesn't work out that way, it will show you we're right all along. But if it does work out that way, that's great. So standing as woman with our woman's skill. Standing as woman, honoring our beauty. That was so important. You see the difference that Upasani Maharaj made for me is that now I have the bracelets, which are a symbol of the Shakti, of the power of the feminine. Because I no longer think that to be beautiful is sinful, or lust-inciting, or unspiritual, or worldly. All of which things, coming out of any one of the 5 major world religions, I would have thought before. But coming from the hidden stream that Upasani Maharaj brought forth, being beautiful is bringing forth the feminine. You can bring forth your feminine beauty as a Maya Shakti or a Jnana Shakti. As a Maya Shakti, you bring forth your beauty to seduce, to incite, to pull into the wiles of Maya, to pull into more and more attraction and aversion within the world. More and more getting and spending, we lay waste our time, more and more of that. That's what all the magazines, and Sadananda and I went through Organic Style at our host house in Des Moines and really analyzed how even in Organic Style, it's very unlikely for you to be an honored woman photographed in organic style if you're not really cool looking. There was one woman in there, she was a senator or something, and she looked normal. She had like no makeup and her hair was limp and she had wrinkles. Wow, that's great. She looks normal. She's just being herself. She's very beautiful because it's her passion. It makes her beautiful. So the Maya Shakti, we're using our beauty actually to keep those wheels of Maya turning. And we don't really want to do that. We kind of feel bad about ourselves doing that, but we feel like we have to. As the Jnana Shakti, like those women, none of whom had had their orthodontic work, but when there's 10 of them in Washington, D.C., the policemen are dropping their weapons. You're like, oh my God, they're stunning. Because their beauty is being used to seduce the mind to bliss, to the absolute, to the self. The capability of our beauty, of our power as a dancer, or as one who is beautiful, is to be able to capture the mind with the beauty and elevate it to spirit. That as a deity form is actually called Tripura Sundari, the beauty of the three worlds. She who is the most beautiful in the three worlds, because she captures the mind and leads it to the self through her beauty. That's really standing in the womanness. And remember, with Durga, she was captivatingly beautiful, and it is in many ways in the power of her beauty that she destroys the demons, but she does have her tiger. We do have our own force. We do have our own power. When we don't live in that power, right, we push it down because women are supposed to be nice. You know, it took me years, I can tell you, to live this down. Because women are supposed to be nice, and I'm not nice. So what are we going to do about that? Number one, women are not supposed to be intelligent. Being a woman with an IQ of whatever I have is some high number, you're not supposed to. You know, like, intelligent men are cool, and intelligent women are kind of like weird, or not okay. Number one, you're not supposed to be intelligent. Number two, you're supposed to be nice. You're supposed to be sweet. And here am I. I don't have that kind of personality that is going to, like, be nice all the time. I'm straightforward. I used to be very upset about it when I was a little girl. My favorite heroine was Jo in Little Women, because she had red hair and a temper too. Things turned out all right for her in the end, and maybe they would for me, even though I had red hair. Back then my hair was red, and a temper as well. So when we feel that we have to be nice, and women were supposed to be nice and be sweet and be charming, and the silver hands, always say the right thing, have a nice day and thank you for shopping at Target. And, would you like fries with that? So, are you still working on that? This is just like say all the right things only. When we do that, right, then the tiger is being like squished and squished and squished, and then PMS time comes around. The tiger goes out to hit everyone. And suddenly you cannot be nice anymore because it's PMS time. And you're just like, the slightest thing. So instead of spending 20 days of the month being nice and then 8 being absolute PMS bitch of the universe, we could just like ride that. We have to sort of learn to ride that tiger. Honestly speaking, my friend Gajendra says, he's work construction a lot. He says, by the time you've learned how to get all your tools and equipment to the job site and unload it the best possible way, you're onto a new job site. By the time I've really learned to ride that tiger of my menstrual cycle, I had a much bigger tiger to ride called menopause. And by the time I learned to ride that menopause tiger, I was done with menopause, and now I have to deal with aging. So I'm not expecting you to get it right as far as riding your tiger. But at least be aware that's what we're here to do, is work with our Shakti. Learn to ride that Shakti, that force which is irrational and powerful and protective. Can we ride that and harness that as a power to save the earth, instead of something we let out a few days a month to chew out our near and dear ones, which I did hundreds of times to the most wonderful person in the world. It's bad. But because I hadn't learned to ride that energy. I think that's my... I came in here feeling like I did not know what I was going to say, and I definitely talked for an hour at this point. It's time for questions. I hope I put across some kind of basic message. We need women to awaken as women. That's essentially what I'm saying. Not as less than men, not as just as good as men. When I was in school, we had to wear ties for our school uniform, because if you didn't wearing a tie signified that you were nearly as good as a boy and therefore educable, worthy of an education, by virtue that you too had a tie. Which of course is like your little phallic symbol, and I never was good at tying ties, and my tie always looked lousy. We're not here to be as good as a man, or less than a man, or nearly as good as a man, or I'm jolly better than those lousy men anyway. We're not here to be any of those things as defined against someone else that we're polarizing against, but here to arise and awaken as woman. That's fundamentally what I'm trying to say. And Anandamayi Ma, quite possibly, Sadaranand says, the greatest woman saint of all time, who lived her own life for many years as a very traditional Hindu wife before she took up her mission as a great teacher, said, the time is coming when women will take the helm of society and men will ply the oars, and then you will see how marvelous a change will be effected. So this is that time. Do you have questions?
Thank you for tuning in to Ayurveda and Spirituality with Alakananda Ma. We hope today's exploration has ignited a spark of curiosity and insight within you. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and share it with a friend. For more enlightening discussions and practical wisdom on Ayurveda and spirituality, subscribe and join our Facebook group, Alundi Ayurveda. To allow us to continue sharing valuable content, consider donating to Alundi Ashram. The links will be in the show notes. Until next time, may you walk the path of Ayurveda with grace and embrace the light of spiritual wisdom in your journey. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivadanam urvarukamiva bandanam mrityormukshi